Now, this course does not have an official opinion on whether it's the duty of painters to use their special talents to support religion, because there are ways in which only they can do that, or whether they have a different duty to their humanity and to seek a more precise knowledge about what our earthly experience is. That is a question that is never permanently settled. But what we are doing is showing the ways in which you can pursue that, and the ways in which this entertaining the question, considering the question sincerely, makes one a modern. And we can see that painters have followed the modern course of life away from complete duty to religion into exploration of human things. It would just be good for us to know whether we can see that beginning, and by comparing this picture of the Annunciation with this one. This is obviously a reverent picture, and it's fulfilling its religious duty perhaps in the highest way by showing us the Annunciation at all. But what are the human scientific aspects of it? In what way does it seem to be fascinated as much with the details of our world as with this visitation of the higher world down to the lower? And one way to begin that is to look a little at the technical expertise of painting, the science that painters have to know, and to look at the subject of perspective. And perspective is the technique by which one takes a two-dimensional depiction. You put colors and shapes on a two-dimensional surface so that it gives the viewer a strong impression of three dimensions. And the techniques involve doing many different things. It can be done with the proper application of colors. It happens through simple things, just by putting one thing to block another, as though it were in front, and blocking our view of what's behind. In this picture, you can pay special attention to the lines we have. Since there's a building in the picture, there are architectural details. We can see that we are looking at lines which are parallel to the flat surface of the earth, and yet they're not drawn straight on this painting. So you can see on the corners of the buildings there are stones in rectangles, and the certain lines lead back. At least according to the illusion, they lead back away from the eye. And when we see them, we understand that they are parallel to the flat surface of the ground. But in fact, they are not geometrically parallel. They're at angles. And we can see that the lines that should be above where our eye is tend to point down rather than go straight back from us. The lines that are off to the right of where our eye is tend to point over to the left. And the opposite is also true. The lines that are to the left of where our eye is tend to lead in to follow over to the right. And so in a painting such as this, there should be a vanishing point. They're all lines that, in our imagined reality, are parallel to the surface of the earth and leading straight back from where we are. All of those parallel lines do actually meet. And can you find somewhere in this two-dimensional surface the exact point where all of those lines that mark out the third dimension for our imagination would meet? Now, the study of perspective will be enhanced if we take a look at this oddity. This is not a painting, but what's called an etching. It's a drawing made on a metal plate so that through various techniques it can be reproduced. It was an early version of photocopying. And the point to this picture is that, as you can see if you look at the caption, every correct technique of creating the illusion of the third dimension is violated in this picture some way or another. So if you want to consider doing it right, if you want to think, what did Leonardo do in order to give us such a strong sense of space that we know where we are, we can forget that we're looking at a picture, just think we're looking through a window at an actual scene. What were the things that he did to give us that strong illusion of space? It's surely not real, because this is a flat surface that we're looking at. And if you want to reflect on that, you can at the same time reflect, what did Hogarth do to have fun with this, to play with our imaginations, to get things wrong, to mess with us. And so the comparison of the perspective technique in these two pictures here done to a kind of perfection, and here done with a kind of gleeful destructiveness because it's fun to mess things up, as well as being gratifying to do them perfectly. As we saw from Shakespeare, it's fun sometimes to write a terrible play, no matter how gratifying it is to write the perfect play. So that would be part of our reflection for class and after. How do we actually see the perspective working here? And all of that should lead us in some ways back to this picture, which is a celebration of human knowledge and a depiction of the low actions. It's not a pretty picture, but the low actions that are required to understand the facts of the world and to know how things work. And that was a strong passion in Leonardo, to understand things and to push his knowledge of the world and to represent that through his works of art. And it's impossible to overlook here in this painting, which does in a way represent the modern spirit, that we may somewhat audaciously, somewhat proudly, somewhat riskily take our liberty to use our talents to depict what we want, to forget our religious obligations, and to explore the world as we experience it without, I suppose I might say, a fourth dimension. The one up to higher realms. And we see this done at a very high level, certainly with as a matter of technical expertise. And we might have the ultimate reflection of, do we think this is worth celebrating? Or does it make more sense to us to see when we see the point to a picture like this, a properly reverent image that has a different understanding of what to do about creating the third dimension. It doesn't put the greatest priority on the science of perspective, but it has its own altered perspective, which serves its purposes better, but seems much more alive to the fourth dimension, up to God in heaven. And do we think of that as a better use of the painter's talent? That's for our reflection.